Exodus 12th chapter, 33 through 36. It reads this way: the Egyptians were urgent with the people to send them out of the land in haste. For they said, "We shall all be dead." So the people took their dough before it leavened, and their kneading bowls being bound up in their cloaks on their shoulders. The people of Israel had also done as Moses told them, for they had asked the Egyptians for silver and gold and for clothing. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. I want to speak today on the subject, how to ask. How to ask. You know, last Sunday, and you may take your seats. Last Sunday, we were blessed to see a video of a bishop on the screen. And it was so surprising and so exciting to see him and how well he looked. It looked like he hadn't been what he had gone through. And as he talked about, as he talked with us, he talked about preparing to purchase some land and to build. And Prophetess Tanya mentioned that just a few minutes ago, that it's time for us to think about the next stage for Redeeming Love Christian Church. And that is to purchase and to build. And as we thought about that, I thought about the journey that the children of Israel went through to their promise. It was an interesting journey that they took. You see, the journey was a 40-year journey. But if you calculate the distance, it should have only been an 11-day journey. But because of their disobedience, it took them 40 years to get or to move towards their promise. I'm going to explain that in a minute. You see, God parted the Red Sea and he killed Pharaoh and their army during that process. God fed them manna from heaven supernaturally in that process. Moses was meeting God in the mountain one day, and actually it took so long that they got frustrated and they decided that he had taken too long and something might have happened to him. And so they reverted back to their old ways. They said, let's collect the gold and silver and let's make an idol and let's worship this idol. And so they did so. And when Moses came down from the mountain and saw them worshiping this idol that they had made in the form of a calf, understanding that a calf was representative of an old idol that was back in Egypt. And so they were taking old things with them. But anyway, as they were worshiping and Moses saw this, Moses made a statement and he said, those that will stand with me, come over here. And those that came over to Moses' side, he told them to strap on a sword. And he told them to kill your brother, kill your neighbor, kill all those that are worshiping the idol. And so there was actually a remnant of the people from Israel that were going towards their promise. Moses instructed him, whoever is for God, stand with me. And the remnant was the one that headed towards the promise, but they were not the ones that received the promise. Not everyone gave their jewelry, though, because it says later in the book that the idols, the people would not wear the jewelry because they were understanding that God was upset with them. And so not everybody had given the resources that God had given them by favor. Some of them held on to it, understanding that there was a better purpose for it. And so there was an entire generation that died, and a new generation came out of that first generation. And that was the generation that actually entered into the promised land. We see that in Deuteronomy 5th chapter. And so as I looked at this story, I asked God, what is it in this story that could help us understand how to get to our promise? How to get to the land, how to get to building the new church, how to get to the new ministry that's going to come out of Redeeming Love Christian Church. And so what God did is God gave me some messages from that particular scripture on how to ask. Because it says that they asked for the gold and for the silver, and God gave them favor, and they received what they asked for. Sometimes we don't have what we want and what we need is because we won't ask. But you've got to be willing to ask for it. And so I said, God, how do we ask for what you have for us? And the first thing he told us is, number one, we've got to pack light. We've got to pack light. Verse 34 says, get rid of the old stuff you don't need and make room for what you do need. We've got to pack light. Bishop Kim Brown told a story, and if you know anything about Bishop Kim Brown, he loves his toys. And one of the things he does is he loves his cars. But Elder won't let him buy all the cars that he really likes. And so what they do is whenever they go on a vacation, they look for one of the cars that's one of his favorites, and they rent that particular car. And so one day they were going on a trip, and they went to rent a specific car, and it was a convertible. It had the top that they could pull back, and then they could kind of ride through the town. And he was really looking forward to this trip just because of that car. And so they get to the airport, and they get to the destination. They ride the shuttle over to the car rental place, and they're excited. He's like a kid waiting to get this car, and they give him the keys, and they tell him what spot to go to pick up the car. And they get to the spot. And the first thing he does is he unlocks the car and he jumps in there, puts the top back. But then he has to put the luggage in the trunk. Because it's a sports car, the trunk is smaller. And so he had to decide, was he going to keep the rental car or was he going to do away with some of his luggage? Sometimes we, in the journey that we're going on, we can't take everything with us. There's some things that we need to leave behind. So God, what do we need to leave behind? The first thing we need to leave behind is offenses. Offenses is more than just being angry, more than just being hurt. Offense is holding on to a grudge, nursing bitterness, and allowing negative thoughts and pictures to change your heart condition and contaminate your emotions. We got to let offenses go. Offenses weigh you down and can affect you physically. Doctors have found that more people that have high level of negativity are more likely to suffer from degenerative brain diseases, cardiovascular problems, digestive issues, and recover from sickness much slower than those with a positive mindset. Offense is a choice. You choose whether to take offense. And so the first thing we need to leave behind is offense. The second thing is, this is how we've always done it. We've got to leave that mentality behind. Isaiah 43:18-19 says, behold, I do a new thing. Can you not see it? God is doing a new thing in the midst of us, and we've got to be in tune to what God is doing. And sometimes that means we got to leave the way we think and the way we've done it in the past behind. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He always does a new thing. Just like he was doing a new thing back then, he's still doing a new thing in our lives. He's a sovereign God, and he has the authority to change things up what he wants to and whom he wants to. We got to stop trying to box God in. You see, I wrote a book called Journey Without Limits, Taking the Limits Off of God. And it was a book that God told me to take some men on a journey. And in this journey, the concept of the book was that we put limits on God. Chapter 3, verse 34 is where the premise of the book came from. NIV version says, for the one whom God has sent speaks words of God. For God gives a spirit without limit. So what was happening was John had just baptized Jesus, and a few days later, some of John's followers were looking across the river, and they saw some of the disciples baptizing other people. And they said, wait a minute, you know, this guy that you baptized, they're baptizing people on the other side. And God said, John said to his follower, he had to explain to him who Jesus was. He said, God gave him the Spirit without limit. So Romans 6 tells us the same Spirit of God that raised Jesus from the dead lives in us. And if that's the truth, then that means that the same Spirit is a spirit without limits. And so we have that same spirit within us. And so we've got to stop trying to put limits on God. We got to stop trying to tell God how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen and let God be God. So we've got to get rid of that old mindset. The next thing we have to get rid of is silos. What are silos? In the business world, a silo refers to a business division that operates independently and avoids sharing information. We're going to get to leaders in a minute, but there's more leaders than Bishop Jamie here. There's more leaders than Prophetess Tanya here. And we've got to understand that who they put in position of leadership is the leader for that particular group. So that means when they put somebody in order and in leadership, we don't have to run back and verify. Are we supposed to do what they said do? We've got to be able to say, okay, they put them in leadership. They have a reason for it. We need to follow the leader. We must get better at supporting other ministries and sharing giftings here. You see, when we share and support each other, then we also will get things from the people that we work with. You want to learn how to pray? Go support Elder Jen and help her out in her ministry. You'll learn how to pray in the process. You want to get better with organization? Spend some time with Elders Maria and Elder Sandra. The administration giftings will develop in you. You want a deep understanding of the word? Spend some time serving alongside Elder Gerald in Christian education. You'll be amazed at what you learn. You ever want to learn social media and marketing? Spend some time serving with the Nickersons in the media department. You want to learn how to care more deeply for others? Spend some time with Vita in the outreach ministry. You want to have compassion for others? Spend some time with Lanika and the whole greeters team. You'll develop compassion for each other. You want to change our ministries? Then we need to change how we serve. Serving in God's house is also training grounds for what's next. The other stuff that we need to let go of is in our preparation will come up, and you can identify what those things are. But what I want you to do is I want you to be on lookout for what is it that needs to change in preparation for where we're going and not for where we are. We need to prepare for where we're going, not for where we are. Number 2 is we need to follow the directions of the leaders. Verse 35, you won't always know why, but you got to trust the directions of the leader. Hebrews 13:17, New King James Version says, obey those who rule or lead over you, and be submissive, for they watch over your souls, as those who must give an account. Let them do so with joy and not with grief. That would be unprofitable for you. So to help expand on that, I figured I'd read it from the Amplified Version. Hebrews 13:17, obey your spiritual leaders and submit to them, recognizing their authority over you. For they are keeping watch over your souls and continually guarding your spiritual welfare as those who will give an account of their stewardship of you. Let them do so with joy and not with grief and groans, for this would be of no benefit to you. So, when you study the Bible, sometimes there are commentaries that follow along with the Bible, and you can read the commentaries. They're not the scriptures, but they help expand the scriptures and help you get a different viewpoint so you can understand what's saying according to that particular person that's writing the commentary. And so I searched for a commentary on this particular scripture, and I found one by some guy named Elder Nat Singletary. And this is his commentary. Y'all, listen to Bishop Jamie and Prophetess Tanya and just do what they ask. They have enough on their shoulders interceding for you, feeding you with rhema words Sunday after Sunday, seeking God for what's next for RLCC, looking out for the physical needs of the building, covering other churches and more. Let them be happy to see you coming and not run when they see you. What do you benefit by bringing them grief? That's my commentary. So we've got to follow the directions of the leaders. Follow the directions is more than about that, but it's also about order. What does order mean biblically? Order means the arrangement or disposition of people or things in relationship to each other according to a particular sequence, pattern, or method. And so I want to use the hand as an analogy. I discovered that there are 27 bones in the hand. If you look at your fingers, you'll see that there's 3 digits in each of your 4 fingers here, and there's 2 in your thumb. But then you have more on the center of your hand, and then you have more at the base of your hand. And so according to this, those digits have to work together. They have to work in conjunction with the digit that's connected to it. And so in other words, not only is it important for us to work together as a whole, but we've got to learn how to work together with the one that's right next to us. And so as a carpenter, it's important for me to be able to grip my hammer. My hammer is a weighted hammer. And for me to get leverage on the hammer, I have to be able to grip the hammer so that I can swing it properly. And when I swing it properly, it gives me the force I need to drive the nail. But when I have 2 fingers off like this, I lose the stability in my grip. And now I can't swing the hammer as effectively. And now I can't do the job or the work that it's designed to do because I only have a certain section of fingers gripping the hammer. We are like that hammer. Each one of us is a digit in the hand. We're like the hand. Each one of us is a digit in that hand, and we've got to work together with each other for the purpose of what the entire hand is doing. If any one digit says that I'm not going to function properly, that weakens the whole hand. And that affects the ability for us to do what we're called to do as a whole. And so we've got to work together, one with each other, and then together as a whole. The ability to follow directions reveals how much we really trust God. God is the author and finisher of our faith, and he is the orchestrator of our lives. Have you ever watched an orchestra play? They generally do not play exactly what other members are playing, mainly because the nature of their instruments are different. Orchestras don't play songs, they play pieces. So I asked the question, how does a symphony orchestra play in such beautiful harmony? According to the MusicStackExchange.com, it says the conductor, inspired by the artwork, inspires the musicians by the movements of his hands, his stick, his face, his eyes, his eyebrows, his mouth, his lips, his tongue, his head, his whole body. The conductor is passionate, probably the most passionate in the orchestra. I would say that would be Bishop. Bishop would be the orchestra, or the conductor. And then each musician must be extremely prepared and know his or her part. Each musician is contributing to his or her part as best they can, and has learned to communicate and express his or her intentions by their tone and gestures. And so not only is the conductor leading from the front, but each musician is also instructing from side to side with the person next to them. What gestures are we making towards each other? How are we impacting the ones that we're called to work alongside? What are we saying through our gestures? What are we implying through our gestures? Because it affects the entire symphony. So the reason of the fact that there's not a whole lot of mess in a symphony is because of these reasons. And this is according to that article. Number one, it says there's good communication and interaction. People in the symphony, the musicians, they all have good communication and interaction one with another. They use gestures. What kind of gestures could we use to improve the symphony? They use positive group dynamics. They're encouraging one another. They're not only concerned about what they're playing, they're concerned about how well their partner is playing. There's competition. There's a little competition in the symphony. Everyone wants to be the best, and they want to use their skill the best. And so competition is good. But there's an ability, there is the ability in place for them to play. So they have studied, they have trained, and they have developed an ability to do what they're able to do in the symphony. And there's quality in practice. So they don't wait till the first day and jump up on stage. They practice. They spend time working with each other to make sure that it's right. So when it's time to be ready, they don't have to worry about getting ready. And the will to do something beautiful for God. I thought that was interesting that this would be placed in this particular list, but the people that are members of the symphony have a desire to do such great work that is beautiful, as a beautiful presentation to God. If a symphony orchestra is willing to do all this to produce something beautiful to God, shouldn't we? Number 3, we want to expect a wealth transfer. Verse 36. Would anyone ever give their keys to their child if the child was around 10 or 11? Would never give your keys or the car and tell them to go to the store and get some bread or go to the movies and watch a movie. And so if we understand the importance of understanding there's a maturity level and that could hurt them and could hurt others, then that, I believe, is God's thought as well. I believe a lot of things that we don't have is not because God doesn't want to give it to us, but because we haven't reached the maturity level to be able to handle it. And so when we think about wealth transfer, I got to ask some questions. And don't get mad at me. And I'm first partaker. So I got to ask these questions because, God, I received prophetic word about wealth over and over and over again. Why has it not manifested? We sing about, send the rain and rain on me and all these other songs, but why has it not rained yet? Why does my account look the same that it did a year ago? So here's some questions for you. Are you ready for it? Are you prepared? How's your credit? Do you pay your bills on time? Do you have a checking, savings, and investment account? Are you deep in debt with your credit cards? If you're a business, are you registered with the state or is it just a hobby? Do you have a business checking account separate from your personal account? Are you building business credit? Are you actively working your business to bring a profit? Are you paying your personal and business taxes? Are you preparing your life to receive what God has for you? If we want to receive the wealth transfer that I believe has already started, then we've got to be serious about preparing so that we can receive it and it not hurt us, and so that it helps us. And so this is a good time to get our life in order financially. Because to take the land, to build, there needs to be resources. And so there's businesses in this house that need to be ready to be able to sow. There's ministries in this house that need to be prepared to be delivered. And so this is a preparation time now. We've got to consider, where are we in relation to what God desires to give us? So we've got to be ready to receive what God has for us. If you're really ready for wealth transfer, you really want it, then you need to prepare for it. And Bishop always says, when it's time to get ready, it's not time. When it's time to be ready, it's not time to get ready, right? So today, God has given us instructions to enter the promised land. Number one, we need to pack light. Number two, we need to follow the directions of the leader. And number three, we need to prepare for the wealth transfer. Have any of you all ever heard of the Kendricks brothers or the Kendricks brothers films? Back in 2003, they released their first full-length movie by Sherwood Pictures, and they call that movie The Flywheel. Flywheel is a movie about a car dealer that he was kind of shady, and he was beating people out of money and stealing money from people. But he came to know God and gave his life to God, and he decided that he wanted to do business the correct way. And so he took his resources and he went to everybody that he sold a car to, and he gave them all the money that he had overcharged them. And when he had done that, that pretty much ate up all of his resources. The problem is this: the bank was coming because they were behind on the loan for the cars and for the property. And so they wanted to come take the property and take the cars, but God intervened. The news channel picked up the story, and they people began to flock to the car dealership and buy up all the cars until they had bought up all the cars. And the money that they had earned was exactly enough to pay off in full the bank. It's a great movie, but the movie itself was meant to be a ministry tool. You see, these two guys were pastors at a church, and all they wanted to do was create a movie and put it in the theater so that they could minister to people as a source of ministry. When the movie went out in the one theater, in the one screen, it was such a hit that they had to fill up more screens. Other movie houses found out about it, and they decided to take the movie in as well. And then the movie became a DVD, and it went out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, all from a desire to minister in a different way. You may not think you know these brothers, but you do know the brothers. They're the ones that created Facing the Giants. They're the ones that created Fireproof, Courageous, War Room. These are all movies that came from the initial Flywheel that started as a ministry tool from an idea from two brothers that wanted to reach the people. The box office success over the past 2 decades for these Christian filmmakers has been phenomenal. They're worth over millions of dollars, and the two of them are ministers from Georgia. So as I was reading this story, I couldn't help but think there's so much talent and ability in this room. We've got songwriters in this room. Your one song could lead to ministry across the world. We've got book writers in this room, some sitting on books. We've got to release those books. Those books are ministry tools. And you don't know how God plans to use that. We have business owners in this room. We have doctors in this room. We have teachers in this room. We have lawyers in this room. And God has gifted us all individually in a unique way, but He's after that gift. Not so that it can just sit in the house, but so that it can be used for His purpose. If you want to ask, then ask with your gift. Father, you've given this. How do I mature this? How do I grow this? What do I need to do? What are the strategies that I have in place? Who do I need to connect with? I guarantee you he'll answer those questions for you. But now is the time to ask. Now is the time to prepare to build.